In the last few months, there's been a sudden rush of launches by India's top developers offering residential plots, also known as plotted developments. Godrej, DLF, Mahindra, Puravankara are some of the big names which have announced their upcoming plotted developments in India's top 7 cities. Today on the Property Show, we get to the bottom of this real estate trend to find out, do plots make better sense than apartments, and who's buying these? We have with us Ashish Puravankara, Managing Director of Puravankara Ltd. Puravankara has created a separate brand under the name Purva Land to actually launch plotted development projects. We also have with us Anuj Puri, Chairman of ANAROCK Property Consultants. ANAROCK Research had spotted this trend, I think, towards the end of 2020, we are catching it now. And Yash Gupta, Managing Partner of YGR Group, a seasoned real estate professional from NCR and launched his own company. And of course, this is the market where we've seen the highest number of plotted development launches. Ashish, we're going to ask you, you've committed 800 crore plus for plotted development projects across various cities, about 5 cities, if I'm not mistaken, and 5.5 million square feet. Is it that big an opportunity?
I think it's a very, very large opportunity. I don't think it's something new. I think if you go back, there were developers, unbranded ones, who would launch plotted development and would really sell out and sell well. These plots were traditionally on the outskirts of cities. Now, in the recent past, we've seen branded developers get in and really add value to these developments, maybe in terms of amenities, in the finishes, the infrastructure that we provide. We have to understand, why this excites prospective buyers, because the underlying asset here, the perception of the buyer is it's land. You're buying land, A. B, it also gives the prospective buyer flexibility in terms of size, in terms of taking time to build their homes. So typically in our developments, you would see about 50-60% end up building their homes maybe in the first 3 to 4 years. But there are also a percentage of people who build that home maybe 6 years down the line. It may be a retirement plan, it may be investment in sheer land, but these are long-term investors. So we are quite excited. We had our first launch post the lockdown opening up on the 4th of May in Bangalore. We launched a plotted development. We sold out 85% within that week of launch.
And where was this, Ashish? How far from the CBD? You said outskirts.
This was about 6-7 kilometers ahead of Electronic City on Hosur Road.
All right.
And most importantly, this was not a traditional launch where we do it, in a banquet. You see other customers. There's the euphoria. There's the herd mentality. This entire launch was done online. So you really have to push hard and cross your fingers because you don't have that emotion where you're seeing other people go and book. In spite of that, I think it just tells you that the demand for plotted development is so strong when just coming out of a pandemic and a lockdown, you sell out 85% of a project. With that confidence, we've launched a separate brand called Purva Land. We've identified about 6 projects totaling about 5.5 million square feet. The first few projects would be Bangalore, Chennai, Coimbatore. And we are now looking at Pune and we're looking at the outskirts of Mumbai. So we are quite excited.
And you're back in Mumbai. I'll come to that a little bit later. But Anuj, as Ashish said, this is not a new trend. It was quite prevalent about 5 years ago and now it's come back. What is that particular reason that, a new project that Puravankara launches, a good branded developer launches and 85% gets snapped up? What are buyers looking for in a plotted development over an apartment?
Thank you very much for having us on the show. You put in a very nice panel, Manisha, as always. So Manisha, Ashish is absolutely right. They have said this earlier as well, buy land, they're not making it anymore. So, it used to be an investment product and it was like time-honored investment product and people would buy into plots. What are the 2 changes that have been made, Manisha? One is on the side of the developers. It used to be largely unorganized developers getting into plotted. As what Ashish said in your opening remarks, Manisha, you mentioned there are branded developers. So, for the first time in plotted development, we're seeing branded developers coming in. For the developers, it's also making sense because previously these land parcels were a little bit on the periphery of the city. Now the physical infrastructure has come through, Manisha. So, that's the second thing. I also think, from a cash flow perspective, it's very easy. From saleability, it is very quick to do it. And largely, Manisha, in these projects, as a developer, you don't really need to take debt. Largely, I would say, is end users. So moving away from investment into end user. And I agree what Ashish said is across the board, we have seen this, Manisha, that the sales of these plotted development has been outstanding in there.
Okay.
And for the developer, it makes a lot of sense because within sort of 3 or 4 months, they are being able to sell it.
All right. So I get it, Anuj, I get it from the developer point of view. Definitely, the industry has always struggled with cash flows and selling plotted parcels of land with probably curated amenities, common amenities makes a lot of sense. Yash, I'm going to come to you. NCR, in fact, is the hottest market back when it comes to plotted developments. The maximum number of projects have got launched here, of course, followed by Bengaluru. When we are saying that, okay, we are not making land, does that mean that if I today invest or buy a plotted development, a parcel of land there, it has a higher chance of appreciation than an apartment? Is the math so clear?
It's kind of similar across the board in some senses and different for NCR and others. So to answer your question specifically, Manisha, the apartments depreciate not just because the apartment is built out versus a piece of land which may not be built out, but also, the specifications change. People come up with new amenities. Someone's going out to buy an apartment, they prefer to buy a new apartment, whether buying an apartment in an older complex. This is not necessarily true for land, where especially the land has not been built out. But in addition to what Anuj and Ashish talked about, whether it's branded developers in plotted or increased connectivity or infrastructure, the 2-3 things that are actually pertinent in the NCR market, which are interesting, is first, there isn't a lot of, I think the converse is also true. There aren't that many branded developers in plotted in NCR. There are new entrants and slightly lesser known developers because some of the earlier known incumbents in the industry are going through their own share of challenges. So the new developers, it's easier for a customer to take a risk on a new developer on a plotted development than to take a risk on an apartment which might come out 4 or 5 years later. The second thing that's interesting is, at least in the NCR market, and if you take Gurgaon as an example, the government has been increasing the number of floors you can make in a plotted development. So earlier it used to be 2, then it became 3, now you can make 4. It allows the landowner to kind of monetize on the increased FAR or the increased development that they can do on that land that may not be possible in an apartment. In an apartment, what you buy is what you get. In a plotted development, it is possible that you buy based on 3 apartments that can be made, or 3 dwelling units can be made, but you might get lucky and you get 4th, which is exactly what's happened in Gurgaon. The last 2 things which are interesting here is the fact that in NCR especially, land prices have been fairly stagnant for a long time. So there is a lot of latent appreciation that had not yet become kind of reflected in the prices. And now that is happening, and people want to catch that trend early. And the final thing is, as Anuj had said, COVID has created an appreciation for more open spaces than for very highly dense complexes. Highly dense complexes.
Okay. Very interestingly, I have this entire plotted new developments in metros, and Bengaluru has, average plot size ranging from 600 to 5,000 square feet, starting at 25 lakh to over 3 crore. Ashish, what is the sweet spot here? Just like, in apartments, we have a sweet spot of 75 lakhs to 1.5 crore, or in fact, even 50 to about 1.5 crore. Is there a sweet spot which you think will get the maximum number of buyers? Have you experienced that?
Yeah, so I think from what we've experienced, anywhere between a 50 lakh, or let me say 45 lakh to a 65 lakh is that sweet spot. In terms of sizing, it's somewhere around that 12 to 1400 square foot plots is what sells really fast.
And do you also believe that the economics works out better, because as cities will get denser, people actually are hoping that, 6 years down the line, when I decide to make my house there, I could probably, instead of, let's say, 2 or 3 floors, which are allowed in different cities, I'm not, we're talking about all India, I could get extra FAR and build probably a 4th floor. Is that something that buyers consider at all?
Not at this point, not in our experience. I think these are buyers who want to eventually build a home. They are bound by the bylaws of each and every city. Yes, there is a key watch on the infrastructure. So I think that's the key part in terms of which projects will succeed and which ones will fail. So, while plotted development is very exciting, it's been doing well, I think it's important on where people launch these projects. For example, you have to have that vision in terms of is there infrastructure available and connectivity available there today? Yes, buyers of plotted developments are a little more open in terms of a vision and a horizon to say, all right, it's not here today, but it will be here maybe 2 or 3 years from now. There is a ring road that is being built or announced. So it's not like you can launch a plotted development anywhere and it will be successful. Infrastructure plays a key role, not today, maybe in the future, but it will play a key role in terms of appreciation and the velocity of sales.
So far-flung areas probably still not a great idea if you don't anticipate good infrastructure coming in those regions. Anuj, what is the buyer profile? I mean, I know that the younger millennials, first of all, pandemic has been a shift for them, saying that, all right, we don't want to just live on rent. Maybe we should look at buying our home. Let's get out from the spreadsheet, rent versus buy. But who are the people who are buying these land? Is it an older population?
So Manisha, very interesting. And, I'll continue from where Ashish left. It is the minimal capital expenditure. I mean, what Ashish said is the sweet spot is somewhere between 45 to 65 lakhs. So really it means is that the affordability of a young IT professional who's working from home today becomes that much more greater. Second is, Manisha, the timeline is much, much shorter, because in 6 months, they are really being able to get the delivery. But more importantly, Manisha, is the risk of delivery. That goes away. Yeah. That there is no risk of delivery.
But there is, Anuj, sorry to interrupt you, but there's also this whole, burden of then building yourself, isn't it?
Which most of the developers, Manisha, would provide the facility that if you want to give it to them to build it, they will build it for you. So, if you don't have the time or the wherewithal, or you don't have the inclination, then you can give it back to the developer and they'll be able to build it for you. So the profile is a lot more younger guys. Previously, it used to be for investment, so it was middle-aged, guys who would buy it. I mean, I've heard a lot of guys saying well, we are buying it for our kids' marriage. At the time we will liquidate it, right, and this will fund the wedding. But today we are seeing these are more professionals who are buying it, more younger guys, because the affordability is there and work from home is propagating for them to be able to live a little bit away from their office.
Well, thank you, gentlemen, for that very interesting discussion. I don't think I'm going to put a number at the appreciation point. I'm going to thank Ashish here. And of course, Anuj and Yash will continue, because on the other side, we have what is brewing in Haryana. There's been an announcement of 2% additional duty on immovable property and 75% job reservation for local residents in private jobs, earning, of course, under 50,000 rupees. Is this going to be a setback for Gurgaon and probably a blessing for the other markets in other states? Stay with us.